Hello and welcome to the IsoCast. Danny, how are you today?
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty good.
That's great to hear. So I know this is a bit of something a bit different because we've stepped out of Australia. So can you let our audience know a little bit about your background and where you're from?
Sure. So I was born and bred in a city called Shiraz. This is the city is situated in the southern part of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated the medical school here, then came to Australia, did 6 or 7 years of acute care. Then due to some family issues, I had to come back here. I'm with my family. I'm not practicing. I've been living in Iran again for the past 5 or 6 years.
Right.
Same city in Shiraz.
Yep. So look, I know Iran was, it still is bad. It's bad everywhere we talk, but Iran is pretty much in the top 10, the top 5 or something countries in the world with this pandemic right
Sure.
now. Like, how are you, your family and friends doing at the moment?
We are all pretty good. So we didn't have any death in the family, or I don't know anyone who's been affected by the corona personally.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to put in perspective the geography and the spread of the disease.
Yeah.
So in Shiraz, we don't have much of a problem,
Right.
not as much as the rest of the country have.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes down to a couple of issues, I think. One of them is the geography. Shiraz is in the mountains. So around Shiraz, you don't have much of a flat land, not much big factories, not much big, like little towns close to the city. So basically, they managed to do the quarantine pretty quickly and pretty effectively in this city.
Okay.
So we haven't been hit hard really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, we just had the Iranian New Year's, and then we have 2 weeks of holidays for everybody during the New Year's.
Yep.
And we have been through these 2 weeks. So it was easy for people to stay at home.
Yeah.
But they started going out since 2 or 3 days ago, as soon as the holidays finished.
Right.
During the holidays, a lot of people did trips inside the country against the advice.
Yeah.
And now we are actually seeing the effect. So we have been seeing about 20 new patients per day steadily in the last month in Shiraz. But as soon as we had this influx of the tourists from other cities, 14 days ago they started coming. Now our numbers are on 120. We've been stable on 20, went up to 60, 80. Now yesterday it was 120 new patients.
It's just when it felt like it was gone, it's like it's slipping back in again.
It never goes away. I think that's the thing. This quarantine and social distancing, it's something that needs to be implemented and keeps going on. As soon as you stop it, then you get the disease coming back, and it comes back really hard.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too. It's you're hearing of the numbers rising, and as soon as that curve starts flattening, and then you've got all this hope it's coming to an end and it starts again. I guess it's just like a roller coaster.
That's exactly true.
Yeah,
that's exactly true. And the other issue we had it really bad in Shiraz, was we had a small hospital, which was a pediatric surgical hospital. So they designated the hospital as a corona hospital, and they stopped all the elective surgeries. The funny thing is they managed more methanol poisoning than corona. And the reason for that is there was this, I don't know what you want to call it, fake news or fake advice or whatever, that people were told on the internet to drink alcohol, and it does fight the corona. So people started drinking alcohol, and you can imagine you can't find alcohol easily in Iran. And a lot of people, obviously the fraudulent people, they started using methanol, and they put bleach in it. So they make it colorless, and then they sell it as ethanol. And people drank this. And we had, in 1 week, we had 263 deaths methanol related deaths.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to the nurses who are looking after these people. And you know, looking after methanol poisoning is a really difficult thing to do as a nurse or as a doctor, because they are on dialysis, they're having everything. And they will die at the end of the day, or they get blinded or whatever. So it was a really, really big burden for them. It broke their back before even the corona started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they heard about the corona. All of a sudden, you have to drink alcohol to get rid of it. So they start drinking this mixed methanol, thinking it was alcohol. I guess that's off the black market or something.
That's right.
So now you got the hospitals are full of methanol poisoned people just before corona. So then you've got corona people started coming in as well.
That's true. We had a 4-year-old with methanol poisoning, which was just horrible. They gave methanol to a 4-year-old boy.
Wow. And then you've got your general patients who are already in there. So you're dealing with 3 streams of patients.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So I think the fear of corona is actually doing more damage than the corona itself.
Yeah, well, that's what they say is turn the TV off and you hear less, you know less, and you'll act less.
That's right. I think one of the major problems is the internet is full of, for lack of better word, it's full of bullshit at the moment. You can't trust anything that you hear, you know, even from the doctors. Everyone is coming up with a new treatment protocol, and a lot of them just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think everyone wants that 5 minutes of fame, because I get a lot of messages and links and pictures of people like posting things, and it's like, okay, well, before I share that to someone else, I want to validate it myself, because I don't want to be spreading fake news. You know, one typical thing was the Vladimir Putin let lions go out in Russia, 500 of them.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I thought that sounds a really good way of controlling people, but it doesn't sound something that anyone would really do, you know, like.
No, you won't do that. I mean, hitting people with the sticks like what they do in India looks like more practical, I think, than leaving lions in the streets.
That's part of everyday life, whether there's a virus or not. So it's just funny that it's been caught on.
Here they're actually finding people. So at the moment, traveling between provinces in Iran is forbidden unless you have a good reason to do so. And if you do that, then you're gonna get a fine. I'm not sure. I think it's about a $50 or $100 fine, but it's a big money for the Iranian level of income.
Yeah, so we got similar. We got borders closing here, you know, and then in some states, like, you know, they want to cut down from north to south. For example, Queensland, you know, Australia, so Queensland, but you know, the Queensland Premier is saying, you know, we're not going to cut it into half. We're going to leave it with one entire state. So tell me, how are the medical supplies there? Because I know globally there's a supply of a shortage of medical supplies. Is that a concern there in Iran as well?
Well, so that's one of the funny things about Iran. So at the moment, you can actually buy alcohol-based hand rub jellies in Iran. And it goes 250 cc bottle goes for $5, and 500 cc bottle goes for $8 or $9. And you can still find them. And we've been talking about this among friends. Sorry, go again?
I said, might have to order them from Iran. They're like $15, $20 down here for.
They're actually made in United Arab Emirates. So they're actually made in United Arab Emirates. I don't know how they bring them here, but you can find them. You can't find alcohol. That's something you can find. All the alcohol production is shifted by the governments either towards the hospitals or they give them to the pharmacy schools, and they got the pharmacy students to make hand rubs with this alcohol. So you can either go to the supermarkets and buy the hand rub jelly, the commercial grade, or you can buy to the pharmacies and get bottles of liquid hand rub. It's based on alcohol and glycerin. And I'm pretty sure they add other stuff to it, so they make it non-drinkable, just because it's Iran. But I don't know what exactly they use. I know they use alcohol and glycerin. I don't know what else goes in it. But you can buy it and you can use it, and it goes for about $2 per bottle. Bottles this big.
Yeah.
I don't know how many cc's in it.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, because like the numbers in Iran really took off, and I think if we talk about official numbers as reported on the websites, I'm following worldometers.info. That seems to be a site that I know a lot of people are actually using.
Yeah.
You know, if we look at their stats, you know, whether they're up or they're down, we're looking, you know, around 60,000, 58,000 something reported cases.
Yeah.
What would you say is probably, I guess, the spark or the fuel that contributed to the surge in numbers from the beginning?
Well, obviously, contact. So if you have contact,
Yeah.
any sort of contact, the disease is spread.
Yeah.
The disease, we think, got entered into Iran through the religious students. They're coming from China to study Shiite Islam in Qom, which is like the religious center of Iran.
Yeah.
It seems they brought the disease and it started from Qom.
Yeah.
And the reason it rapidly spread so fast in Qom, in Tehran, and in a couple of other religious places, what we think is because in the religious places in Shiite Islam, Sunnis are different, but in Shiite, they use some clay tablets. They come in different sizes and shapes, but usually they're like a matchbox, the size and shape of a matchbox.
Okay. Yeah.
So when they say their prayer, they put the forehead on it when they go down. And at the end of the prayer, they kiss it. Now, you get these clay tablets from communal boxes when you enter the mosque. You don't bring your own.
Okay.
So basically, you have a big box of these, and then you pick up your own, say your prayer, and then put it back. And you can imagine if everybody kisses it and puts it back, the next person would come and pick it up. It's just a disaster for a disease like corona. So there was this big spread of corona among the religious people in Qom and Tehran. And we think part of it is because of this religious behavior. They kiss each other and they shake hands, and as soon as they see each other or they say prayer, it's pretty common for them to kiss each other.
Yeah, yeah, wow. That's, yeah, you kind of think, well, you're going to, you know, place of worship, you think of all things that, you know, you're meant to be safe there, and you've got this, you know, it's totally innocent too, and kind of
see, the other thing is a lot of sort of characters, they don't believe in modern medicine, and they more believe in alternative forms of medicine. Two of the most common ones is the Persian traditional medicine, sort of like a Chinese medicine or Indian medicine. They use different herbs for different stuff. And then there's this new one that just came out maybe about 10 years ago, and they call it the Islamic medicine. So they go and find out what Islamic characters in the past said for diseases, and they use those sort of things. And there was this guy in Iran who is the head of one of these Islamic schools, and he prescribed violet oil. So you're supposed to put violet oil on a piece of cotton, and then you put it in your anus when you sleep. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but a lot of people actually do that. And there was this market for violet oil.
Yeah, I think anyone who wants to sell something and market it, if they do it right, then they're going to make a lot of sales right now, because people are believing anything.
That's true. I mean, it happens everywhere. Yeah. Talking about supplies, though, we can actually get face masks. So I bought a couple of face masks. I was going to bring and show them, but I forgot. It's in the other room. They are not N95. You can't find N95 masks. And my friends who are practicing, they can't find N95. Instead, they went and bought some sort of industrial grade mask. So it's got a visor and the mask, and the filters go on. And you can actually change the filters. And the filters come in N95. So actually what they've done is they bought this industrial grade mask, and they changed the filters into N95. That's what they're using. But with the surgical masks, you can actually go to the pharmacy, and per person per day, they sell you 2 surgical masks.
Wow.
With the ventilators, with ECMOs, I'm not sure about ECMOs. I think we only have a couple of them, a handful of ECMOs in Iran, maybe less than 50 or 100 in the whole country. I'm not sure about the number. I know we have 2 tertiary centers in Shiraz, And I know one of them has got one ECMO. I don't know about the other one.
Right.
And I know there are about 20 ECMOs in Tehran, but I'm not sure. With the ventilators, we haven't been at the level of needing lots of ventilators. So at the moment, you can actually find free beds in ICUs in Shiraz.
Right.
But I guess if it comes to that, they can use the ventilators of the operating theaters and other areas. And other than that, I don't think any country at this point in time could get hands on ventilators. Basically.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem worldwide right now, because you never need this many. Now all of a sudden you need 10 times more than what there is out there. So that's a scary thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So how
see, from what I've observed from my friends who are working and practicing, it's not much the lack of ventilators right at this point, but this is the beginning of the pandemic. It's the lack of personal protective equipment that is really a bad thing, because it's different for me. If I want to go and do like a normal shopping in a supermarket, I wouldn't be wearing any mask or hand gloves. I'm just very careful not to touch my face and wash my hands as soon as I can. But if you work in a hospital, that's a different story.
That's right.
And we had a really big number of casualty among doctors and nurses in the northern parts of Iran. That area is hit by the virus pretty bad. I guess because they're dealing with more virulent form of the virus. The more virulent the virus, the more likely you get very sick, the more likely you end up in the hospital. So if a doctor comes and sees you and get the virus from you, and opposed to getting a virus from a box of, I don't know, chips, from buying it from a supermarket, then it gets a more virulent form of the disease with a bigger viral load. So we had lots of really young, up to 23, 24-year-olds with no past medical history whatsoever, and they just died. And it seems really sad, because they die very rapidly and they lose their consciousness very rapidly. So one day they're pretty good, within hours they are on ventilator. So I think from all this, the take-home message is with the corona itself, it's just a disease. It's an infectious disease like every other disease. And we have to treat it medically. But because of the fear among the people, and because of all these fear mongers, that they just spread all these fake news, and everyone's trying to sell you something and get advantage of this fear. That is actually causing more problem. Plus the medical staff are the real victims of this disease, because it's their death toll is disproportionate compared to the normal population. Lots of young people, pretty healthy, they just die because they get a really bad form of the disease. And that's something that is really bad. And my friends who are working at the moment, they basically drained of energy. They don't seem to be able to continue it for another 5 or 6 months. Every time they go to a shift and they see all these young people die, and they have to make really hard decisions of who to intubate and who not to intubate. It's just horrible. I don't want to be in that situation.
Well, it's interesting you say about the young people, because over here, the so-called news is that it affects more older people. So it has a lot of younger people, including myself, thinking, well, if I got it, like my biggest fear is getting it and passing it on. If I got it, like I'm fit, I'm young, I'm healthy, I should survive. But based on what you've just told me now, well, maybe that's not the way to be thinking, is that doesn't matter who you are.
See, unfortunately, that's not the way. So this is what we were told as well. But what we are observing is different. What we are observing is the paramedics who are transferring the patients in the confined space of the ambulance. 10 days working, they're going to get the corona. And they're not going to get the corona as in they get a fever and they cough and they stay at home and they get better. No, they get the corona as in they need ICU corona. So I don't know what the governmental response should be to this. I mean, they're comparing the doctors and the nurses to the soldiers, and they say like, you are the frontline soldiers and you've been trained to do this and all that sort of stuff. which is fine and it makes sense, except that even if you are in the military, when there is a suicide mission, then it's a voluntarily based suicide mission.
Right.
And I think looking after corona patients at this point in time is like a suicide mission.
Yeah.
So basically, those who have the slightest of disease or any background history of cardiovascular disease, or they take any sort of disease-modifying agent for the rheumatoid arthritis, or they take corticosteroids or any sort of immunosuppressive medications, I think it's a time for them not to work, because they're actually going to their death, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard because they're out there trying to save lives and they have to put their life in front first.
See, that's the thing. One of my friends is a psychiatrist and he works in Tehran. And he's not a psychiatrist anymore. He's a corona specialist and he looks after corona patients. And this guy has been a completely different guy in the past 2 weeks. He doesn't want to talk about what happens in the ICU. And once he told me just wearing all the stuff and taking them off and then wearing them again, and it's just horrible and he can't tolerate it anymore. I know a lot of the nurses, especially in the northern parts of Iran, they actually quit work. So as soon as their friends started working, they didn't go to the hospital anymore. So that was one other problem. As I said, the area I live in hasn't been affected very badly. It's actually starting now, so we're expecting to be really, really bad in 3 weeks' time. But compared to other areas, especially the northern part of Iran, which is a forested area close to Caspian Sea and between mountains and Caspian Sea, and it's all forests. They actually used to have tigers there up to 100 years ago, but they went extinct. But the thing is, I don't know whether this Shiraz being a very dry area, so Shiraz is 1,500 meters above the sea level in the mountains, and it's very dry. North, sea level, very wet. I don't know, that had to do anything with the difference that you see, or being religious or not had to do with it, or us being more prudent and I don't know, putting in the quarantine very quickly and people just stayed at home, not having many worker population. I think that comes to it as well. In Karaj, there are lots of factories and they have lots of workers. So basically the socio-economical level of your unskilled worker is much less than your skilled workers or your university people, that sort of stuff. And they have been affected really badly. For many, many times, they have been told that soap would kill this virus. I have seen many videos of taxi drivers that they put vinegar in water and then they disinfect their hands with vinegar and water instead of washing it with water and soap. I guess the media failed to either properly inform people about the facts, or it's the people who put so much fake news in the internet that you can't actually trust anything anymore. I don't know what was the cause, but you see massive differences between the cities. And I think the take-home message is the only thing that can slow down the spread is contact. So no contacts. No contacts whatsoever.
So how was the panic, or did you have panic buying over there like every other shopping center in the world?
Not like the other countries. So initially the hand gels went out of stock. The other thing that went out of stock, and that was funny, was the big size liquid soaps. So the liter size liquid soaps, you couldn't find them. You could find the small ones, but not the big ones. But that was for about 2 weeks, and after that everything restored. So right at the moment, if you go to the supermarket that I usually go, except for alcohol, you can find everything else.
Everything,
I don't know what the reason behind this is though. Again, we've been talking about this with my friends. It might be because people in Iran, generally speaking, in the Middle East, they are used to live in crisis. So basically your daily life is a crisis. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. A lot of unexpected things happen all the time. So I think part of it was that, people are used to it, and they have rice and they have that sort of stuff that they need.
Yeah.
One of my friends who lives in Tehran, he couldn't find lentils for 2 weeks. So lentils were out of stock
So
in Tehran.
that would be almost like an emergency.
And I think the other reason is maybe because people don't have enough money. So if you're gonna go and buy a hand jelly, and each hand jelly is if you are an unskilled worker, minimum wage, it costs about 2 days worth of your wage. So you have to think about it. So I think part of it is because of that. If people had money, then they would have gone and bought everything. But but we didn't have the toilet paper situation.
No, I understand. It's Iran, so that's kind of a good problem to have.
Yeah, soap went off, so you see that's sort of similar.
But I think like for example, like in Australia, like we've got a population of around 25 million, but in terms of food, like the supplies in the country are for 75 million people. So, and people don't understand. They think it's all going to run out. It's all going to be, so it creates more panic. But then, and this is what you said earlier, is that the media doesn't get the message across effective enough, and it's everyone else that creates the panic. So everyone else creates a panic. The media gets drowned out. The shopping centers are still full.
That's right.
But if everyone just shops as normally, nothing's going to run out.
Yeah, people can get their hands on everything.
Yeah.
I guess if people are thinking something might run off, it would be the luxury items that would run off in it, not the food,
Exactly, right.
But people don't get it, and they, I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess, look, we're coming to the end of the segment. So based on like your experience and what you've seen and everything in Iran, except for the obvious things which we've spoken about, like the cleaning and the contact, do you have any other kinds of tips and tricks which, like something like might help our viewers, maybe who's, afraid or, been infected, or anything you've got to share?
Yeah, so basically I think people should stay away from the internet at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And they just get their news from WHO or some sort of other very reliable source. There's no treatment for the disease, and everyone should know that. The other thing is the medical stuff. So I don't know how you guys are preparing yourselves in Australia, but I think doctors, nurses, paramedics, whoever works in the medical field, they have the responsibility to look after themselves before looking after others. And if it comes down to that if you get the situation like Iran, I don't think it's going to be a good thing to lose a couple of nurses in every department, in every hospital in Australia. I don't know how you're going to deal with that. Better personal protection equipment, or maybe, I don't know. I don't have a solution for this, but this was something that we observed, and it was really sad. Yeah,
well, no, I don't think anyone has that solution right now, especially with personal protective equipment, because that's a problem all over the world right now. So
right.
I think it's one of those things that's got to battle through and work it out as we go.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, Danny, well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for the insight.
No worries, Michael. My pleasure.
Part of the reason why we started this IsoCast was to find out stories from individuals, not only within Australia, but obviously globally. So it's a pleasure to have you on, especially from Iran. Look, all the best. It's something we're all dealing with. So, good luck to all of us to get through this, I guess,
Yeah. Good luck to you guys. I hope Australia manages to deal with it differently than we did in Iran, because what we saw wasn't good.
Yeah.
All the best to you guys.
All right, great. Thank you very much.